Hey guys, it's Protendo, and New Horizons updates as of late have been more focused on the game's holidays, and because of that, haven't added any additional characters aside from the holiday mascots. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, especially when awesome new features like pumpkin growing have been added, but I think it's safe to say that most of us expected to see a little bit more of the missing cast by this point in the year. And considering the fact that the game's next update is yet again holiday-based, it's hard to say when exactly we might see some of New Horizons' absent characters making their grand return. So with this in mind, I figured that it was just about time to release the highly anticipated sequel to my giving every missing New Horizons character a new role video from a few weeks back. What? What do you mean it was actually 3 months ago? 3 months? Wow, that's 2020 time for ya. Before we get started, I'd like to point out that despite this video being a part 2, you can still start here. The parts only determined which animals I talked about in alphabetical order first, this episode covering the latter half of that list. You won't miss anything by watching these out of order, because there isn't really an order to begin with. But with that out of the way, let's get into the list, starting with Katrina. And before we get started with her role, I've gotta say, Katrina has one of my favorite Animal Crossing designs ever. Her robe is really cool looking, and of course, being a panther sets her apart from all other characters. Seeing her in HD would be a real treat, but as far as jobs go, I don't really see the need for her to alter what she does in any way. She can still be a traveling animal who sets up a tent in the plaza and reads your fortune. Not much really has to change. I'm not sure if New Horizons even features luck as a mechanic anymore, so maybe she could even bring that back alongside her. Despite fortune telling not being all that important in the grand scheme of missing features, Katrina is still one of the characters I want to see the most. Following Katrina, we're covering the male trio of Pete, Phyllis, and Pelly. These three have existed since the GameCube era and are unfortunately just 3 more who ended up getting the axe this time around. Pelly and Phyllis are actually facing something that we solved with Harriet in the previous video, being replaced by an inanimate object. That's gotta sting. Imagine being declined to return to your job of 19 years because the airport got a new mail stand. Needless to say, I think Pelly and Phyllis can simply replace the mail stand in the airport and instead have a small area dedicated to letters and mail. I feel like sometimes New Horizons makes the decision to sacrifice charm for convenience, which can be positive in many ways, like with the mirror item, but in this case, I'd definitely rather interact with these two great characters while picking up envelopes instead of buying them from a stand. And speaking of envelopes, I think this would be the perfect chance to integrate a new minigame into New Horizons. With Pete being busy with some other stuff I'll get to in a bit, Pelly and Phyllis would need a temporary mail person to get letters delivered to island residents. Accepting the task would start a minigame in which you have to try and deliver mail and or packages to 5 random animals, potentially including special ones like Tom Nook or Blathers. The goal is to do this as quickly as possible, as you would be rewarded with bells, receiving more or less depending on how fast or slow you were. Also, if we're going to go ahead and update the airport, can we please add an ABD? Why is there only a single ABD on the entire island? It's ridiculous. But moving on from Pelly and Phyllis, we come to our main man, Pete, who I'm going to be giving a semi-new job. Don't get it twisted, he'll still be delivering letters between animals, but this time it won't be animals in your town. Main Street in Animal Crossing New Leaf is one of, if not my absolute favorite sub-location in the entire series. There's so much to love about it, to the point that I'm literally planning an entire video expressing how great I think it is. But an element that I thought was pretty underrated was how you could occasionally see old villagers who had moved out. Their dialogue was nearly non-existent, but sometimes it was just nice to see their faces again. New Horizons currently has no such feature, so unless an animal you kick out ends up moving into a friend's island, they're gone for good. But with Pete, interactions with old friends could be taken even further. Pete would become a traveling animal in New Horizons, appearing about twice a week. His appearance wouldn't affect other special traveling characters from showing up though. While in town, Pete would explain the new Pen Pals service implemented by Pellicare, allowing you to communicate with animals who had long since moved out. For a small fee, you would be able to write to 10 animals who had at some point moved away from your island, the game keeping track of everyone that has so you can choose from the list freely. As to not have all the special letters mixed in with the normal ones, Pete would be able to show you the pen pal letters directly if you see him in town on his first appearance following you sending the letters. If you're not there, however, he'll just toss them into your mailbox. I feel like this would be a great way to allow players to feel a real sense of progression by seeing how much their population has changed and still allowing them to interact with characters they might still think of fondly. Moving on, we have Phineas. Phineas is an interesting character because he really changed his career path between games. In City Folk, he was a city-exclusive animal who gave out special items that only he had, like balloons and pinwheels. But in New Leaf, he suddenly became a scout leader and rewarded players with different badges depending on accomplishments that they've had in-game. Because of his weird history, Phineas could probably have a completely new occupation again and no one would bat an eye, but I think I'm going to build off of his New Leaf job instead. I found badges to be a really cool achievement system, despite the fact that they didn't really do anything. But in New Horizons, we have a much more in-depth and interesting achievement system, of course being the Nook Miles challenges. So I think having Phineas build off of this system would be awesome. Phineas's new title is the Nook Miles Master. He's famously completed every single challenge there is, and now searches for players to reward who've done the same. Phineas appears on Fridays, but only if the player has entirely completed one or more of their Nook Miles challenges. If you have, Phineas will congratulate you, give you a balloon or other item as a callback to City Folk, and reward you with a special piece of golden furniture. This is known as the Completionist Set and is incredibly valuable. The pieces in this set aren't just your typical couch, chair, table, etc. though, and instead match whatever challenge you complete. For example, say you beat the Active Island Resident challenge by playing the game for a total of 300 days. Phineas will reward you with a golden grandfather clock. Or if you complete the Castmaster challenge by catching 100 fish in a row without messing up a single time, he'll give you a golden fish statue. One of these exists for every challenge, giving the player even more incentive to complete them. Additionally, the furniture set can be customized to have various colors and textures, so it doesn't have to be exclusively golden if the player doesn't want it to be. Coming up next, we have Porter the Monkey. Porter is known for being the train station clerk in both Population Growing and New Leaf, but there's obviously no train station in New Horizons. So what should he do? Well, this is kind of weird, so some of you might not like it, but I'd find it really funny if sometimes, for absolutely no reason, Porter just inexplicably replaced Orville at the front desk in the airport. Like you just walk in there on a random day and surprise, it's Porter. And this might just be me settling on a below average idea because I don't know what else he could do, but I don't know, I just think it would be really funny. If you guys have any better Porter ideas, let me know in the comments, I'd love to hear them. Following Porter though, we have none other than the legend himself. The man, the myth, the one, Sonny Resetti. And his brother Don too. If you've been around the channel for a while, you already know how much I love this character and how I was disappointed with how he was handled in New Horizons, so I'm not going to retread old ground by explaining that all over again. And yes, before people start commenting, I do know that Resetti is technically in the game, being the operator of the rescue service hotline. But I didn't find this satisfactory in any sense of the word, considering my man can't even be seen. He literally has no in-game model, like come on. However, I don't think that Resetti's job is the issue, it's how it's handled. Having Sonny try and help people in need is a pretty nice concept, so instead of dropping it, I'm going to expand upon it. The idea involves a brand new yet familiar location, the Rescue Center. From the outside, it looks nearly identical to the Reset Center, aside from a helicopter being parked near it and a sign labeling the location. Heading down into the manhole reveals Resetti and Dawn, either relaxing or chattering away about who knows what. Talking to them can get you some new dialogue obviously, but much more interestingly, unlocks the Rescue Helper minigame. This is a challenge in which Resetti asks you for help on a mission to rescue an animal in need. Accepting this mission brings up a menu showing 3 potential villagers to save, what they need to be rescued from, and how many bells Dawn and Resetti will give you after you finish the job. There are about 24 missions, each of which can be vastly different from the last. One might have you catching a bunch of sharks before they have your animal friend for dinner. Another might have you popping present balloons filled with wasps' nests and catching the wasps before they can attack the helpless villager. The center is only open 2 days a week though, so it's your job to make every mission count. The Rescue Helper service essentially offers 3 things in this case. 1, it offers some decent single-player minigames, something that New Horizons sorely lacks. 2, it offers another way to make money in an efficient way. And 3, most importantly, it offers another way to get new animals. After rescuing an animal successfully, they'll be incredibly thankful and question what island you're from. And as long as you have an open spot, you can then convince them to move in. This offers a little bit of variety to what's currently the most optimal strategy of finding your most wanted villager, traveling to dozens upon dozens of island tours and farming thousands of Nook Miles to do so. This still has a random element, of course, being the 3 animals you get to begin with, but even if you don't see an animal you want, you're still rewarded for completing the minigame, and can get some fun out of it too. After doing X amount of rescue missions, Resetti and Dawn will reward you with various pieces of the Reset furniture set, mostly being items that we saw lying around back in the Reset centers of old. The canon reason for getting these, of course, being that Resetti simply doesn't need them anymore with his new job. Moving on from Sunny and Dawn, rhyme completely intended, we've got Serena. Serena was the fountain goddess in City Folk, whose job was to reward you with silver and golden axes. Considering she's been gone for long over a decade though, I think she's absolutely ready for a new job, this one being somewhat inspired by Stardew Valley, which you should all play, by the way. Serena would be the rarest special character in the game aside from holiday animals, only appearing on one day a year, the day your island was founded. On that special day, she'd sit in the middle of the plaza, waiting for you to talk to her. Once you do, she'll begin your evaluation. Serena will look at how many bells you made that year, how many challenges you completed, how many friendships you improved, how many bugs you caught, and many more factors to determine how quote-unquote well you did that year. I say quote-unquote because I'm aware that many Animal Crossing fans don't play for the sake of completing X number of challenges, and that's completely fine. You don't have to be efficient in Animal Crossing to play the game well. It's not like Serena's gonna give out a letter grade or anything, but she does reward you with furniture of varying rarity depending on how many things you completed in the span of the year. Also, there's a tiny chance, like 1%, that Farley shows up instead of Serena. Not only would it be a nice little Easter egg for fans of the original game, but it would also just be ridiculously funny to expect to see Serena in the middle of town and instead be greeted with Farley. Next, we have a character that is very highly requested, the retired mayor himself, Tortimer. Tortimer's role is incredibly obvious, and no, that's not because I'm just gonna say he's dead. He just needs to run Tortimer's Island again. New Horizons multiplayer is incredibly bare bones because aside from the island tours or like hide and seek, there's nothing to actually do once you're with your friends. Tortimer's Island can absolutely change this for the better. They can create so many new mini-games, especially with New Horizons featuring double the players that New Leaf supported. Captain's family would still be residents of the island, of course, and it could still be perpetually summer, allowing for a very nice, relaxing, and warm environment no matter what time of year you plan to visit. And finally, to cap off this video and two-part series, we have Wendell. Wendell's role has differed pretty greatly between games, but has always involved art designs. And I think that trend should continue in New Horizons. I think he should take a page out of Blanca's book by asking you for help. Wendell would be a traveling animal, could be dealing with some major art block, and request that you draw some designs for him. And no, he wouldn't post these online or show them to any other players besides yourself in case of any non-PG drawings. After helping him enough times, he'll reward you with something that every player has been dying to receive, more design slots. Come on, Nintendo, 50 is not nearly enough. But anyways guys, that's about it for this video. Sorry it took so long to get the second part out, this year's just been a whole thing. What do you guys think of my ideas? And what roles would you choose to give the missing animals, should they make a reappearance? Let me know in the comments below. Protendo out.